Supergirl catches a spaceship.
And the legends fight a dinosaur as we review and recap all the CW DC TV shows. Hi, I'm Jason Inman.
And I'm Ashley Victoria Robinson.
Welcome to DCTV Recap, the show on the internet that nobody asked for, but we're going to bring you anyway. We are the show that we like to review all these CW DC TV shows, give them to you in a good, bad, and prediction format, all kinds of stuff like that. We do this every week, so make sure you click subscribe if you want to check it out. The little bell down there, right by the subscribe button, will make you a little notification every time we do a DC TV video. And also, if you want to skip ahead to your favorite show, go down to the description. The time codes are there. So let's jump up and away into the very first show of the week, Supergirl.
Supergirl Season 2, Episode 15, Exodus. Alex and Kara realize they must break the rules to foil Cadmus's latest plot.
Boy, that was that as a synopsis that didn't tell you anything about the episode.
Heck yeah, thank you.
We're going to break this down like every episode we do on DCTV Recap. We're going to give you some of the good, we're going to give you some of the bad, and then we're going to give you our rating and the prediction. So let's start off with the good. Okay, so this episode of Supergirl opened up a little bit differently than a lot of episodes of Supergirl. We saw a family on the road. We saw them in a minivan. We saw them driving around the forest that looked probably nothing like National City, looked very much like Vancouver, but I get it. That's where they filmed there. And then they're pulled out of their car and taken into a van by the people of Cadmus. I thought this was an excellent shocker opening for Supergirl. And also, like, we didn't even see Supergirl in this opening. It was just these aliens being kidnapped, and then it was title screen Supergirl. I
actually wondered for a minute if this was a flashback, because there's a little girl that you can see in the backseat of the car.
Yep.
So I thought this was maybe a Maggie flashback that we were getting at the beginning.
Oh.
It took me a minute to realize that this had to do with the alien registry that Cadmus stole in the last episode.
Yeah. What else did you like from this episode?
I really liked all of the Alex storyline because Alex's character I've really come to enjoy this season. She's been kind of ridiculous the last two episodes since we've had Jeremiah come back in a big way.
I would say only the last episode, but sure.
Yeah, she's kind of been erratic and she's been emotionally affected by this. I think there's a scene here where Jean comes and he is masquerading as Jeremiah and he forces her to kind of admit that she would put her father before the mission. I think that really plays into what they've been building, and it kind of justifies some of the what I would consider out of character actions. I like that. I like that her and Maggie get like a ride or die girlfriends moment, and then I like that it does come full circle to, you know, she kind of realizes that she needs to listen to Jean and she needs to focus on what is most important in her life. I think she has a really, really great arc this episode.
I mean, Alex has had a hell of an arc this entire season.
Yes.
If we were to name like an MVP of Supergirl Season 2, I think there is no doubt it would be Alex.
I would definitely agree.
It is so interesting, too, that in Season 1, this character was a character that I actually disliked.
I agree.
And disliked a lot. And I could not figure out whether it was the story or whether it was the actress herself. But I will say that Season 2 has proved that it was 100% the story.
Yeah, Kyler Lee's been killing
it. Because when Kyler Lee gets some stories of substance, she's great. And like you said, like Alex has quickly become one of the best. This has become the Alex and Kara show.
Yeah.
And the show has benefited from that.
And I really like when she gets scenes with Jean. I know that Jeremiah is her actual father, but I like that paternal bond that she has with him. I think it's very sweet.
I also like her new alien gun that we've had since the Kevin Smith episode.
Oh, it's so cool.
It actually really helps her character a lot, makes her very unique. I want to talk about Snapper Carr in this episode.
Oh.
Not only did that actor do a great job, I know he was Drew Carey's brother on the... No, he wasn't Drew Carey's brother, but he's been on a lot of... I believe he was Mimi's husband from the Drew Carey show.
There you go.
He had a great line in this episode called saying to Kara, let's put a DEFCON 3 on the Moxie.
Yeah.
I think it was an interesting idea, his lesson to Kara in this episode, especially when Kara was like, well, let's talk about the alien registry getting loose. And he's like, who's your source? Supergirl. He's like, so?
I love his interview with Supergirl as well because he doesn't take any of her guff.
Well, we're going to get on that. We're going to talk about that later down the road.
Okay.
I want to still talk about my point here. He said that it is actually a very smart idea because this is something that we've seen from the comic books for a very long time, that Clark Kent would go to Perry White and be like, I got the story, Chief. What's your source? Superman. And he'd be like, great, put it on the front page. And this actually brings like a sort of a real world, even though the show is very far from the real world.
I mean, superheroes.
But they do a lot of stuff in journalism where he's like, well, I need more than one source because how do I not know you're just lying about talking to Supergirl?
Well, and Supergirl's hardly a verifiable source on top of that.
100%. So I appreciated that we got to bring some real-world journalism into this world, which I thought was very good. Wynn's girlfriend, Lyra, likes Dune, as everyone should. Go read that book.
I'm really enjoying, she's getting a really slow burn because she's definitely a character I think that's going to pay off later on, but I'm really enjoying seeing her.
Yes. What else did you like from this episode?
Can we talk more about Snapper Carr?
Sure.
For a minute? So, I think this is going to bleed over into talking about Kara in this episode as well. So we've been saying for a long time that Kara's sort of terrible at her job.
Yes.
She's not great at being a reporter, and she gets egged on by Lena and some other characters into basically breaching her contract in a huge way. And
publishing a blog.
And publishing a blog that's the article that's rejected by Snapper. I have a lot of respect for that character for firing her, for putting his foot down. And he's kind of a comic relief character, and he gets this nice, very quiet, down-to-earth scene. It has some tremendous acting in it.
Well, let's talk about what happens here. Mm-hmm. We're skipping all the way to the end. Kara gets fired from Catco.
Yes.
Because she published his blog. And to be honest with you, she deservedly got fired.
She should have been... There are many fireable... But specifically for this,
Well,
yes.
we've also been saying on this show for several episodes that we think that Kara should just not go to Catco anymore anyway, because that storyline is so minuscule with the overall plot. I have a feeling they're going to give her a job at the DEO. My prediction is that, and this is going a little bit ahead, but I have a different prediction.
Sure.
I have a feeling that Lena's going to give her a job.
I agree.
And she's going to work at Luthor Corp, and then that's going to be the rest of her arc, is learning that Luthor Corp's bad.
I think you mean L Corp.
Whatever, it's Luthor Corp. Because that's how we're going to bring Lex back. Anyways.
Yeah.
But he deservedly fired her.
Yes.
But I appreciated that he even said that he was like, well, I had guts that you did it, but also I appreciate that he was like, we've got to hold ourselves to a higher standard because otherwise people will just believe all the fake news out there.
Right, and it also speaks to Catco as a viable news source.
Yep.
As opposed to maybe some other fictional outlets.
By the way, from everything we've seen from Catco so far, Catco is kind of shown as like a people magazine, a fashion magazine.
Right, it really seems to be a lifestyle magazine more than, I would say, hard-hitting journalism.
Yeah, that's the most ridiculous thing about this.
Not that can't be the case. Teen Vogue is out there killing it right now, but that's not the storyline that
Are they?
Yeah, they are. They have some... If you haven't checked out Teen Vogue lately, go read some of their political articles. They're very well informed.
Apparently, Snapper Carr works for Teen Vogue.
Apparently, he does.
Well, it's not an advertisement Teen Vogue. We're talking about Supergirl. Okay? All right. Let's move on to one of the other best lines from this episode.
Yes.
I like to call, what's the mother Luthor? I like to call her Mommy Luthor.
Leslie?
Laura.
Laura?
Mommy Luthor. Mommy Luthor says that Dean Cain this episode, you're the only Superman we need. Said Lois and Clark, the new Superman Adventures of Superman. By the way, if you've been wondering, we did a contest last week about making a DVD cover for Lois and Clark, the new Adventures of Superman. We're going to announce the winner at the very end of this video, so there you go. I like the fact that Lena's secretary secretly works for Cadmus, that Lena can trust no one.
Yeah.
I think it's really good. Forcibly deporting all the aliens, I actually think that's an interesting storyline. It's an interesting idea, although it's a very big expense to build that giant spaceship to just send them away.
Right.
It would be easier to kill them.
It would be,
and
although
cheaper.
I guess good on Dean Cain for that at least. I wonder if maybe it was a salvage thing or if this is like some project of Lex's. But it's like, yeah, you spent a lot of time and resources to like shove this thing into space.
This spaceship looks very expensive.
It does. It's sizable.
What else did you like about this episode? I have one final beat about the big climactic moment.
Yeah,
so if you have anything else you want to talk about.
I really liked Katie McGrath, who plays Lena Luthor in this episode. I like that she plays this very similar to the way she played Morgana in Merlin, I'm sorry. Even though she's doing really nice things for Kara and she seems like she's helping Supergirl, she always seems like she has a secret.
Well, like Luthor should.
I know, but I just like watching her, and I feel like this episode we really got to see the way her mind works, and I really think that she's gonna turn out to be a baddie in the end, and I
100%.
I enjoyed watching her, and I kind of can't believe that Supergirl's fooled by her, but that's okay.
Yeah, whatever.
I can get over it.
All right, let's talk about the climactic moment where Alex is on the spaceship and Supergirl shows up, and
Captain
Supergirl pushes against the front of the spaceship, and they do this nice moment. Actually, one of the first times on Supergirl that I've noticed Blake Neely's music. He does this really nice theme there, and like Supergirl can't stop the ship. We'll talk about this in a second. But she can't stop the ship, and she looks at Alex, and Alex is like, you can do it, and they touch hands, and then Supergirl is able to stop the ship. One of, I think, the best moments of this series to date is that scene.
Very super, along with last week's fixing the train rail.
I think this is way better.
But, I mean, in a similar
Yes.
vein, like, it feels truly super.
This is way better than this.
Oh, yeah.
Very
Yeah,
emotional
yeah.
moment. Very, although I will knock it a little bit. This is a little nitpicky. That's not how physics work. And also, her pushing against the glass that much would crack that glass in half so quickly.
Yeah.
I don't care that it's tempered for space.
I don't know if you can worry about it that much.
Okay,
but
yes. I'm willing to skip past it because the
yeah.
moment was so good. And again, something we don't really notice with this show a lot, Blake Neely's amazing score. It was great in this scene.
He did a really good job. I also like that as soon as they got out of the atmosphere, you could see Kara screaming, but you couldn't hear it anymore.
Oh, okay.
I thought that was like a neat touch because obviously there's no sound in space.
Well, they didn't quite get to the episode, but I'll give it to you.
Wow.
And then the final scene, let's talk about the Teri Hatcher cameo that we've been waiting on the show for so long. Also, Kevin Sorbo, Hercules himself.
Yes.
They're revealed as these alien king and queen, and I think, let's not even wait for the predictions in this. I mean, they're Mon-El's parents.
Yeah.
Come on.
Duh. It's really
Come
funny
on.
because I think when they revealed Teri Hatcher, because I guess I don't really hold a picture of her in that mind because I've never watched her in anything. I was like, wow, you really cast Mon-El to look like her.
Well, they cast her later, but
Yeah, but I mean, like, that actor looks like he could be her son. I was, like, really impressed.
And then Kevin Sorbo, of course, from the great Kevin Sorbo's Action Hour with Aliens, which is what I like to call Andromeda, playing the king. I cannot wait
with
to...
a Luke Skywalker haircut.
I am praying that we have a Kevin Sorbo Dean Cain fight. Because you want to know what? You want to know us? See, Kevin Sorbo coming onto this show is actually a Superman Easter egg.
Is it?
Do you want to know how?
Please.
Kevin Sorbo was the runner-up for the role of Superman.
He doesn't look anything like Superman.
On Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of
Doesn't look
Superman.
anything like
Still
Superman.
never watched that shit.
At least Dean Cain sort of looks like Superman. Also, Dean Cain is kind of an MVP for doing almost all of his own fight work again in this episode. And while it's not particularly fast, he throws a good punch. The man can throw a punch. I really respect that about him.
All right, let's move into the bad, because for me, there's very little bad in this episode, but there are a couple things.
I would agree with that. Why don't you start us off?
Well, the opening, the parents singing in the minivan, I liked everything else about that scene, but that song was annoying.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
I almost came through the computer that I was watching it on. Okay, let's talk about Supergirl and Snapper Carr having the interview. Okay. I get that you have to do a certain bit of comic book Clark Kent logic, that we can't figure out that the glasses are there and stuff like that, okay? But the other aspect of that is that most of the times, in most portrayals of Clark Kent to Superman, he changes his voice, he changes his hair,
his posture,
he does all kinds of stuff like that. All right, right now, as of in Supergirl, the only changes between Kara and Supergirl are her hair is brushed back when she's Kara, her hair is forward when she's Supergirl. She has glasses when she's Kara. She does not have glasses with Supergirl. That's it.
I will say there is a little bit of a posture change, but it's not as noticeable as it is with like a Christopher Reeve.
And she does not change her voice at all. So
she does put more makeup on though.
Okay, so this is the thing. I was willing to give it the benefit of the doubt when she was standing at the desk and Snapper Carr was sitting down. I was like, okay, comic books, I'll go along with it. Then she sits on the couch and gets this close to Snapper Carr. Snapper Carr is the worst reporter in the world. If he cannot recognize that that's his new reporter that he works with every single day.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we did have a storyline where Kat figured it out.
Yeah, well, and then we redacted it. But yes.
But we had proof for why Kat redacted it. We had a valid on-screen explanation that we saw the two of them at the same time, Kara and Supergirl. So that's the reason why Kat was going for it. But Kat did figure it out. Snapper Carr is inches from a person whose desk is literally feet away from him.
I figured it out. He's got cataracts.
I don't know. That is where you broke it for me.
Yeah.
You literally snapped it in half for me, and I literally was just like, he's the dumbest person in the world, which sucks because I like his character, and everybody nitpicky whatever. I don't care. Whatever you're gonna say in the comments. That was where it was too far. If she stayed at the desk, stood up, stood at the window,
stood backlit by the window,
flew in the window, whatever, I was willing to give it a pass. But in Catco, the place where he works with Supergirl, he couldn't figure it out. Bull.
Yeah.
I don't accept it. What else did you not like from this episode?
I didn't super like that we had Jimmy around for no reason. Or James, I'm sorry.
Whatever.
I thought he was fine in the scene.
He got into his Guardian suit real quick.
Yeah, that was fine. He was fine in the scene with Wynn, but like I'm sorry, this is nothing against McCad Brooks or the character, but like he adds nothing to the show now. So when he shows up, to me, it takes me out of like, I like Wynn and Lyra.
Yeah, whatever.
I like them together. I'm interested in that story. I like Maggie. I like Alex. I'm interested in that story. Jimmy just showing up to like have a drink at the bar is super weird now. Sure. So I could have done without him in that scene. It would have been streamlined, I think.
And the last bad thing that I have is that when Lena is pushed over the railing and Kara and Supergirl saves her, Lena asks, "Oh, how did you know?" And she was like, "Oh, I was with Kara Danvers. That's why I heard." Supergirl, you are doing a bad job with your secret identity. You literally could have just been like, I was flying around the city.
I have super hearing.
Yes.
I heard you screamed when you went over the side.
You said, I'm with Kara Danvers. How does Lena not know now? Come on.
I think Lena knows.
Oh, Lena
knows. Evil people always know.
At this point, everybody in the damn city knows.
I mean, look, she's no Barry Allen.
Well,
where everyone in Central City knows.
Good Lord. Okay, so let's move into the rating for this episode. Based on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being the best, 1 being the worst, Ashley, what would you give this episode of Exodus of Supergirl?
I think Exodus was a really good episode of Supergirl. It focused on the aliens, which is what it has that separates it from everything else. The in-character subplots were interesting, and they're finally moving stuff along. Yeah. I am going to give it 4. I really enjoyed this episode.
I agree. I am also going to give it a 4. It had none of the relationship BS
nonsense
that is normally like ruins episodes of Supergirl, that completely derails episodes of Supergirl. It was a great episode. I thought it was very topical. It had a lot of fun, and Kara pushing on the spaceship for the rules of physics, the laws of physics that it breaks, was still a great moment.
It was.
So it really helped the episode. Yeah, definitely 4. Okay, based on this episode of Supergirl, so let's move into our predictions.
Yeah.
What do you predict for the future of Supergirl?
I predict for the future of Supergirl that we are going to see Dean Cain as whatever we're calling him, not Cyborg Superman.
I mean, he's not any kind of, he doesn't have a title. He's just Jeremiah Danvers.
I know, but he needs he needs like a name. He needs a code name. Hyper Jeremiah Danvers is going to be directly responsible for wrecking the alien bar because he is destroying a lot of alien facets that are important to Kara and Alex, and that's the biggest representation of them.
You don't think it was basically destroyed in this episode?
I don't
By the raid?
No, I think we'll see it.
Trashed?
I think he will burn it to the ground, and I think we will not see that set after this season.
Interesting.
And I think that'll be something that the girls will blame him for if the relationship continues to crumble.
Got it.
What do you think is coming down the pipe for Supergirl?
We had Snapper Carr interrogate Supergirl and the DEO a lot. We also had a scene specifically where John Jones revealed that we cannot mention the DEO's existence because it's supposed to be off the books. I think that Snapper Carr is going to write a giant expose on the cover of Catco revealing the existence of the Department of Extranormal Operations so that in the next season that department will be public, and this will lead to the end of Catco. Like Catco, we will not have Catco past the season, but that's Snapper Carr is going to reveal that to the world that Supergirl is working with this organization, and it's going to be a big deal.
But what will happen to James?
Who cares? He's going to go away. I hope, anyways. All right, so as speaking of things going away, let's run right into this week's episode of The Flash.
Flash Season 3, Episode 15, The Wrath of Savitar. While training with Barry, Wally starts having visions of Savitar, which he hides from the team. A dangerous secret threatens Barry and Iris's happiness.
All right, as you know, every single week we talk more about The Flash because there's so much Savitar in our own separate video. You can check that out clicking at that card right up there in the corner. Go check it out. We do a lot of cool things. We have a lot of funny things. We noticed in some of the comments, a lot of people noticed something that we did not notice that I want to bring up. Savitar in this episode, if you haven't seen it, and full spoilers for this episode, by the way, go click at the card, go watch it. Savitar says to Flash, I am the future, Flash. And a lot of people out there in the internet world and in the comments below think that Savitar, by saying that, is claiming that he is future Barry Allen. Now, I wanted to pick that apart a little bit because it's one thing that we didn't bring up. There was a storyline written by Robert Venditti, I believe, in the New 52, where there was a blue Flash that showed up.
Yes.
He was a Flash that murdered people and stuff like that, and it was Barry trying to correct the future. Do we think Savitar is future Barry Allen, and do we think that that's just a pause in the line of dialogue? I want to hear your thoughts.
I think you guys are reading way too much into the way actors deliver dialogue in this episode.
Tobin Bell, this actor.
Yeah, for me, I think no way. We're not gonna have. We're having Barry be the bad guy in the main storyline, but we always circle the characters around to be heroic and return to their true nature. I don't think so. I think to me, it's clear that it's Julian.
Well, let me devil's advocate for you, because
Please.
a lot of people are like, well, this whole season is about Flashpoint, and having it be evil Barry Allen, or the Barry Allen from the pre-Flashpoint timeline, whose life got ruined or something like that, coming would be like the personification of the Flashpoint storyline, which is an interesting point.
Yeah, I just really don't like Flashpoint, so I would love for that to go away and we just never talk about that again.
But what do you think of that idea? You can't just say I don't like it, though.
Sure I can.
You can say you don't like it, but we all want to hear your thoughts, Ashley.
I don't like it. I think it's an interesting idea. I think it is a lot of people reading too much into it, but that's something that we've seen that a lot. We've seen Barry facing personifications of his guilt, of his feelings about his mother. So it would feel a little bit like a retread for me, even though we've gone through a timey-wimey explanation for it. Do you think it's an exciting idea?
I think it's a very, very interesting idea that I don't think the Flash writers can pull off. I'm sorry. I hate to say it. Like,
I kind of agree.
We're in our third season of The Flash right now, and a big thing about The Flash is, what is the identity of the villain? Right? Mm-hmm. Okay, and every time we're going through this, we're like, oh man, they could do this intriguing idea of this person over here or this person over here. And in both seasons, they went with the most obvious suspect every single time. Mm-hmm. Tom Cavanaugh, for the longest time, I did not want him to be Reverse Flash because it's more interesting to do something else. Yeah. They made it Tom Cavanaugh. Season 2. It kind of became obvious that it was going to be Jay Garrick, and I was like, man, it would be more interesting if like Zoom was like John Wesley Shipp, or even like or even an evil the Earth 2 version of Joe West,
or Eddie,
or even Eddie. They went with Teddy Sears, which you were just like, that is confusing, doesn't make sense. I think the most obvious suspect is Julian. Mm-hmm. I think they're gonna make it Julian. I really do.
Yeah, we need a reason as well for Caitlin to turn evil, and it's gonna be Julian.
Yes. Now, do I think the Barry Allen idea would be more interesting? Hell yes.
It would.
It would be a very amazing, like, I think they're right on the thing. That would be a perfect personification of this Flashpoint storyline. I don't think they can pull it off. I really don't think they can.
They're going to reset the timeline again.
I think they're dropping so many Julian hits that it's ridiculous. Yeah. That I think it's Julian. I think they're going to play telephone with Julian again, and boom, Savitar is going to pop out of him.
I agree. That's how he's going to be born.
Yeah, I think it's going to be so simple, because that's what the show does every time. Mm-hmm. They don't go for the like the most intriguing. They go for like that we've hit you over the head with this clue so many times. I think this pause in dialogue is ridiculous and not a clue at all.
Yeah, I think it's just the line reading.
I think it's exactly like a line reading. So I think I've compared it to The Prisoner. If you ever watched that TV show where they, in the opening credits of The Prisoner, the guy goes, "You are number 6," or "You are number 1."
Yeah.
And it's like everybody's like, "Oh, that means that he's the number 1." No, it was just a line reading by the actor. So there you go. That's all I have to say about the Flash and Savitar and all this stuff like that. There was no Arrow this week, so let's stop talking about Savitar. Let's move to Legends.
Legends of Tomorrow, Season 2, Episode 13, Land of the Lost. The Legends are left 70 million years in the past when Rip causes the Wave Rider to crash after his capture.
Okay, let's talk about the good, and then let's talk about the bad, and then let's get through some ratings, and then a prediction and stuff like that, as I swat away an imaginary time fly that flew through the camera.
From the past.
You didn't see it, but it was evil. All right, anyways, first off, I want to talk about, and I was kind of sad that we didn't get to see him in this episode. I like the idea that they're searching for Commander Steele because I think it's an interesting idea. I like the idea of them bringing the JSA people back. I really think that's cool. I kind of was expecting to see him in this episode, but as we saw this episode progress, it was very much a bottle episode.
It was a little bit of a Chekhov's Commander Steele that we didn't get to see him because he was so heavily set up in the first act that you're really expecting at least one scene with him by the end of the episode.
You expected him to be in the dinosaur time,
yes.
but he wasn't there.
Yeah.
But I will say that, like, I understand they do a bottle episode. If you don't know what a bottle episode is, it's a thing that when a show only shoots on their standing sets to save money, and this was mostly a bottle episode because it was all in the Wave Rider, and then it was all in the forest that I assume is just, like...
That everybody shoots in outside of Vancouver.
Like, they didn't build any sets with a fake tree set, which really wasn't much of a set.
Yeah.
So, okay. So, I like the idea very early on that Rip said this code that was like something tricycle.
Yeah.
And it let him turn on the self-destruct. And then he destroys the medallion and then Rory punches him. Evil Rip Hunter. Man, I've been loving Evil Rip Hunter.
I love Evil Rip Hunter.
He's so good. What else did you like from this episode?
I liked that we reveal that the Time Masters have this technology that basically lets you like control somebody's brain.
Cognitive takeover is what they call it.
Yeah, you can like go in there and manipulate it, and that Rory is the person, having been Kronos, who has the best understanding of it. So once they decide to use it on Rip, he has to lead Martin, the super scientist, through this, and his first thought is, get me a beer.
Yep.
He's gonna do it intoxicated.
Let me say that this is the second episode in a row where we've had Rory be better at something than Martin Stein.
Be the smartest.
Person, because we had that in Camelot 3000 as well. Okay, so we got to see a little bit of Ray, and in the very first episode, we learned that all their characters spent 6 months in certain time frames, and Ray's was, in this point, 70 million years BC. Is that where we're at?
Yeah.
Whatever. And we learned that he named all the dinosaurs, like he named this T-Rex Gertrude because he made an omelet of like one of Ray's.
Yeah.
I thought it was stupid. At first I was like, this is going to be ridiculous. But actually, the more and more we got through it, they kind of played Ray like he missed this place a little bit. Like this place was so simple for him and he kind of connected to the land. And then I like the idea that his hut was basically like drenched in T-Rex urine, which I thought was so interesting. Like generally I'm not a big fan of Ray, but this episode of Ray, like I was like, oh, like he's kind of like progressing. He kind of like, he liked his time back in this time period, which I thought was kind of like nice and kind of like heartwarming a little bit. That he was like, you know what, 70 million years in the past, that's actually my favorite time.
I disagree. I thought this was foolish, and I thought Ray definitely would.
Well, we're not talking about the bad yet.
Definitely would have been murderized.
So, but actually, no, he really shouldn't be murderized at all because he's a smart, super smart scientist.
Build a fire.
Oh, be quiet. He's a quantum physicist. He can build a fire.
Do you know how hard it is to build a fire?
Very easy, actually. And anyone that has had military training, very easy.
Ray has not had military training.
He's smart enough to do a fire. I'm not even going to get past this point. He built an Iron Man suit. He could build a frickin' fire.
He can build a fire.
All right. Let's talk about what I actually think is one of the best things of this episode.
Sure.
We get to see Gideon in the flesh.
I loved this.
The real actress who's been voicing Gideon for 2 seasons now.
Yeah.
She was great. I really loved the joke that Jax was like, "Oh, I thought you were a redhead." And then I'm gonna skip a little bit to the end. There's a moment between Gideon and Rip when Rip gains back his mind, and they kiss as the ship explodes. And I actually thought that was one of the best moments of the entire series.
So I was kind of reticent when it was the same actors who did the voice work, because just because you're a great voice actor doesn't mean you're a great physical actor, and vice versa. There's lots of people who you're used to seeing on screen when you hear them do voice work, they're not that great.
Yeah.
I thought she did a wonderful job, and I'm now, this is leading into my prediction, but I'm convinced that we're going to see them find a way to bring Gideon into the cast.
Oh, cool. I'd be fine
and I
with
would
that.
love that.
Yeah.
I really like.
It reminded me a lot of the Doctor's wife from Doctor Who.
Yes,
Yeah.
and they're both English, and he was on Doctor Who. I really like where
he was actually in that episode.
Yes, that's true. I really like where it leaves the two characters, and I think there's a lot of really interesting possibilities of where the show could develop from here.
There was also an interesting storyline that talked about where the show could develop from here that I had kind of forgotten, which I actually think was really. So Ray noticed that old Vixen and Nate were kissy-kissy. And Ray, who I completely forgot would know this character, brought up the fact that Nate can't mess with Mari's timeline because, or he can't mess up. With Amaya's. With Amaya's timeline because if he does that, then that means Mari from season 4 of Arrow will never be born.
I will say we don't know who Mari's grandfather is.
Okay.
So Nate could conceivably go back to I'm sorry, whatever country they're from.
Somewhere in Africa.
I know they dropped it. I'm really sorry. If he went back with her,
he could be the grandfather?
He could be the grandfather.
Well, okay,
but Amaya does have to go back there and have a child.
And Amaya also has to go back there and die in the burning of the village.
Yes.
That is mentioned in several times. So there's nothing to say that Nate and Amaya couldn't be the mother and father
grandmother.
A grandmother. Well, I was going to say the mother and father of Mari's mother.
Yeah.
There's nothing to say that that couldn't happen. But we know that Amaya has to go back. This is what you would call in Doctor Who speak a fixed point in time. Mm-hmm. This has to happen. Again, I completely forgotten about that, but when they brought it up, I was like, no, duh, this does have to happen.
Yeah, I thought that was a really great moment for Ray.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
There's also a great moment where Sarah had the speech to Rip Hunter to be Rip Hunter, and the Legends of Tomorrow theme song swells up. I thought that was a nice... Again, Blake Neely...
It was a good speech for Sarah.
Blake Neely having a hell of a week here with the score.
Yeah, really.
And then let's get to the end. The real Rip Hunter is back. He walks slow motion into the bridge, has a nice little moment with everybody on the bridge, and then he talks to Gideon by himself, and Gideon remembers the kiss from inside his mind. I think you're right. I would be totally fine, and even if it was only a holographic representation of Gideon with the full body. Mm-hmm. But I think you're right. I think they will figure out a way to bring Gideon full form.
It'll be something that Ray does that'll figure it out.
Yeah. It'll be something like, it'll be actually, again, I mentioned it earlier, Kevin Sorbo's Action Hour of Aliens, what I like to call Gene Roddenberry's Andromeda. They did that too. Lexa Doig was the android version of Andromeda.
Which is funny because I think this actress looks like Lexa Doig.
Sure. There you go. Any other good moments you want to talk about in this episode?
Not for me, personally.
Okay.
Anything else?
No. I was not a big fan of this episode. Yeah. All right, let's go to the bat. All right. First off, all around, for a bottle episode, which I understand, the CGI in this episode was terrible. And I have multiple examples here. The CGI of the ship crashing in 70 million BC, oh man, bad. The CGI snake, and then even Firestorm, who most of the time looks pretty decent.
I would say 90% of the time he looks good.
Yeah, but then they had this clearly a CGI model of the actor who plays Jack Jefferson flying around with red fire, and it looked terrible.
CGI dinosaur also looked terrible.
Oh man, but you know what? I knew going in the CGI dinosaur was going to be bad.
Yeah.
But there's stuff like, they've done the ship before, and the ship looked good.
And the ship has crashed multiple times.
Yes, they've done Firestorm before, and Firestorm looked good.
Yeah.
But like all around, the CGI, I don't know whether it was rushed or whatever, it looked bad.
Yeah, it's weird too, because a great bottle episode, even though it feels contained, can really teach you some interesting things. Yeah. I don't know if this episode pulled that off, with the exception of the Ray and Gideon thing. I don't think this is a great bottle episode.
Gideon and I agree with you. I will talk about it some more.
Yeah.
What else did you not like about this episode?
I didn't like everything with the dinosaur in the dinosaur time, except for the little scene about future Mari, who, for all we know, Mari is never coming back or is coming back. Mm-hmm. I don't like Nate and Amaya. And now that Amaya has a decidedly modern change of heart and is like, yeah, we can totally casually sleep together.
Well, I want to bring that up a little bit. I want to talk about that because I have that in my bad moments because...
It's so out of character for her.
Yes. So the reason why she explains to Nate that she wants to do this now is because of Stargirl from the last episode and all her teammates being lost in time. And she's like, well, I want to... The JSA didn't have relationships, so I want to create relationships. It's a complete 180 turn from not even the last episode, the Civil War episode.
Yeah.
No, the Revolutionary War episode.
I guess it feels
so many wars.
It feels very unearned to me. And using the metaphor of like animals can do it, so like we can do it. It's just kind of sleazy. They're doing it because they want them together in order to rip them apart at the finale, would be my guess.
Yes.
But I can't think of two characters that belong together less and is weirder than the two of them. And I didn't like that was basically the focus of that entire subplot. Okay,
another thing that I didn't dig, and I think it's an interesting idea, but they didn't quite pull it off, was the idea that they all had to fight each other. Like there were the Sarahs had to fight, the Jacks had to fight. But the problem with that is that Again, I get it, a bottle episode. Like, when Sarah faces the other Sarah, I get it. You can't have Katie Lotz fight Katie Lotz. But generally, the Katie Lotz fights in this and Legends of Tomorrow are amazing. They're great.
They're some of the best parts of the episode.
Exactly. And in this, you could tell by the way they were filming it that they were going, like, so far out of their way to make sure that we didn't know that it was Katie Lotz.
A lot of overhead shots.
Well, a lot of backups. And then I noticed later on the fight with Katie Lotz and versus Heatwave and Ray, until they got to close-ups, that was not Dominic Purcell and Brandon Routh.
No,
it was two stuntmen in the fight. When the first time she meets them, it is not Brandon Routh and you can clearly tell it is not them.
I also don't understand why they didn't think the visual cues and us just knowing that Heatwave and Ray Palmer are not there was enough, but like all of the evil versions had like modulated voices.
Yes.
Which
I didn't like.
Which was silly. Like we can figure it out, and sometimes the mystery of not being able to figure it out is fun.
Yes.
But they didn't play on that. Instead, they all had weird computer voices.
Yes. I kind of wish, like, again, I get that it's a bottle episode. I kind of wish that Rip's mind was somewhere else. I kind of wish it would have been the children's home that we saw in season 1.
I agree.
I get it. It's the Wave Rider. You're saving money. I'll let that one slide. Another thing that I didn't really dig was that in this mind,
I know what you're gonna say.
Rip had mind powers and telekinesis that he could push on people.
I feel like...
And that was very silly.
I feel like somebody just watched, like, Legion and was like, you know who would have been better in this part?
Yeah.
Arthur Darvill, so let's give him, like, telekinesis for one episode.
It just made no sense, especially since Rip Hunter is a character that does not have powers. He's always been mortal. So it didn't make sense. It didn't seem to serve a plot purpose.
It didn't, except that in the end, he can, like, run forward and save everyone.
Yeah, I guess.
But again, not really well earned,
No.
but nice to see Rip eventually emerging as his normal self.
Like I said, like let's just jump to the rating here.
Yeah, sure.
Ashley, on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being amazing and 1 being not so good, what would you give this episode?
I am gonna give this episode a 2.
Yep.
And I'm only not giving it a 1 for Gideon because the Gideon stuff was great.
I agree exactly with you. I am going to give it a 2 as well. Gideon and the whole Mari thing bump it up a little bit. I think this was a terrible execution of a bottle episode.
Yeah.
Usually bottle episodes are... to be honest with you, Star Trek is a show that does bottle episodes amazingly.
The best.
Because, you're set on a ship, you're set on Deep Space Nine, whatever you want to call it, and we usually learn something about the characters. Mm-hmm. In this episode, I don't feel we learned enough, or like, to me, they should have focused on one thing. They should have either been like, okay, it's all about going into Rip's mind.
It should have been a Rip episode.
Yes, and let's learn how Rip feels about being a bad guy now. Let's check in. We haven't seen Rip this entire season.
Yeah, Rip as we know him.
Let's check in with Rip. That's what it should have been.
You could have also revisited, like, they touch on it,
Season
but they don't go into it. His representation of all the other characters, how he sees them, how he sees the team. Like, there's interesting enough material there to be mined, which is why it's so frustrating.
I actually think it would have been much a better episode if they would have just had Sarah and Jax find Rip in the cell, and it's about Rip gaining his memory, walking around the ship, and having to confront...
like a mind palace.
Exactly, and having to confront other parts of his lives. That way you could have fit in the Vandal Savage posters.
Yes.
You maybe could have got a cameo with Vandal Savage. You could have done some, like, the Time Master guy. You could have done stuff like that, and it could have just been walking around the hallways. But I thought the idea of them fighting themselves was just like... and you could... Yeah, I agree with you. You literally could have cut out the entire dinosaur storyline. Wouldn't have mattered.
Yeah, and, the dinosaur storyline in that setting is interesting enough. You could have visited it in another episode, and it would have worked just fine there as well.
All right, let's talk about the predictions for going forward. Ashley, what do you think is going to happen in the future of Legends of Tomorrow?
I think that we are definitely getting an important reveal about Nate and Maya in the next couple episodes.
Okay.
That is either
what do you think it's going to be?
I'm hoping it's that Nate is going to break up with her and they're not going to stay together. What it's probably going to be is that he's going to be like, I'll just be Mari's grandfather. That'll be dope, yo. And then you're going to learn that he's actually going to go back in time with her. But traditionally, I mean, traditionally based on the last season, Legends of Tomorrow has a team change-up. They have a couple members that get recycled. Nate and Amaya, as the two fill-ins, are the logical ones that will go away, although we have talked about Martin Stein going in the past. So I think that we have to come to some decision with what is going to happen to those two characters just based on the kind of stories that we've been telling with them and the issues that they've been addressing. And I think that's coming in the next couple episodes, and I'm hoping that they break up. Cross your fingers for me that they break up, guys.
Cool.
What do you think is coming for Legends?
Well, you brought up a little minor part of my prediction.
I'm sorry.
Last week I predicted that Martin Stein was going to die. I think this episode confirmed it. There was
very little to do.
There was a whole conversation with where Heatwave said, like, "You're no spring chicken.
Mm-hmm.
What happens if you die?" That conversation was brought up in this episode, and I do not think that conversation was brought up lightly.
I agree.
I think that conversation was very much like, wink, 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 he's gone.
Aww.
Martin Stein will not be in this show.
Victor.
And I love him. He will not be in every episode next season. He'll be a cameo next season. That's what's going to happen.
Bummer.
I actually think my real prediction is that they're going to find the Spear of Destiny, and when they put it all together, the Spear of Destiny is not only going to rip open time, it is going to rip open a hole in the multiverse.
And then they'll see a bunch of Barry Allens just running around in there.
Well, I think the Spear of Destiny is going to rip open all of reality. That means it's going to rip open the multiverse. I think the finale is going to be crazy, and we're going to see several different versions of this crew. I also believe we will get a Supergirl wink in the finale.
That'd be cool.
I really think they're going to go insane with the finale, and I think you're going to see the Wave Rider not only hopping through time, but hopping through the multiverse in the finale.
That would be so cool.
I really think that's what's going to happen. I think we're going to meet multiple versions of Rip. We're going to meet multiple, and I think that maybe next season we might not only make the Wave Rider just about time, it might be making the Wave Rider all about protecting time and the multiverse.
And the fabric of reality.
And the fabric of reality. I think that's what it's going to be. I just think they're going to go crazy with it.
I could see that. I could also see Legends only getting 3 seasons, and to me that would be a logical leap to like take them
Step
to
it
the
up
next
one more
level.
Yeah. All right, cool. So that's all the talk about TV shows and stuff like that. Last week, we asked you guys to make this really funny Lois and Clark: The New Adventures of Superman, where I suggest that people don't watch it. We had a whole bunch of entries. Here are some of the best ones. And there are some of the really cool images. We've got so many images. I love when you guys make fan art. I think we're going to make this a regular thing every other week. We're going to do that. But we had to pick a winner. And of course, the winner is Jay Johnson of Florida, who made this amazing image. I just thought it was so simple, and it was one of the very first ones I saw.
Yeah.
And I thought he just captured the... I could see that as a DVD cover.
Nice.
I really could.
Well
so Jay
done.
Johnson, send me a message on YouTube. Give me your address, and I will send you the 2 copies of Batman Rebirth that you won. Thank you so much for putting together the awesome work, and thank you everybody else who did that awesome artwork as well. We're going to do another fan contest in a couple weeks. So thanks for watching. Go down to the comments. Make sure you click subscribe. And also, while you're down there in the comments, let us know what you thought was the best show of the week.
And why not click on one of the videos of the screen? They are going to be full of geeky goodness that we know you're going to love.
We do DCTV Recap every single week, so make sure you stay around and watch us. And we'll see you next week, you time traveling monkeys.